It's probably the thing that I enjoy the most about this show is the opportunity that it provides us, the platform, to get to know players better. And it is always great fun when those players are amongst what I consider to be a legendary class. Bill Rogers is one of those. Bill Rogers won 14 times as a professional, including the 1981 Open Championship. He was a member of arguably the greatest United States Ryder Cup team ever. In his prime, there were a few better than Bill. From 1979 to 1982, he had 102 starts on the PGA Tour. Get this, 37% of them were top tens. He won 8 times worldwide, including that Open at Royal St. George's. He stared down the giants at their height and came out on top. Think about this. Norman, Kite, Irwin, Crenshaw, Langer, Nicklaus was still in the mix. So too Lee Trevino. The list goes on and on. He was born in Waco, Texas. He went to the University of Houston. He's Texas through and through. Perhaps where he honed his toughness, which secured his place, of course, in history amongst the greats as a major champion and more. Looking forward to spending time with Bill and welcoming you to this program right now. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm curious to start with you. From playing on a Walker Cup team in 1973 to what you did through the early 80s and then the conclusion of your play on tour in the late 1980s, did your path play out the way that you envisioned it as a kid who was sitting back just imagining what could be?
Well, let me begin by saying, Matt, thank you for having me. And I think you've given my career way too much credit. I certainly don't consider be at the legendary class, but you're kind to reflect on some of the wonderful things that happened in this game of golf, this great game of golf. But no, as a kid, I just fell in love with the game, as many youngsters do. I had a family that was a golf family, had people care about me, and ultimately kind of fell into a relationship with a golf professional in East Texas, where I grew up, Texarkana, Texas, and he kind of took me under his wing and turned me in from a golfer into a player. And, it wasn't really until high school and certainly college that I had any thoughts of, being good enough to ultimately play on the PGA Tour, but really never even considered reaching the heights of the game that I did. I enjoyed it. I loved the process, and I took it as it came. But unlike a Tiger and some of these modern day players, I didn't dream the big dreams. That didn't mean that I didn't make 3-footers for the Open and U.S. Open and Masters and all that. Certainly I did as a kid, but I kind of just took it as it came and loved it, and forever grateful for it.
You were part of what could be said was almost a golden age of collegiate golf at that time. And I thought it was classic, actually, looking through your bio and your history, to think that you and Bruce Litsky were roommates back in those days.
Yeah, my very best friend in life, who unfortunately we lost to glioblastoma several years ago. But yes, I often comment when asked about playing career. I think that I played in the very best generation of golf. We got to touch really some of the developers of the professional game, be it Snead, Nelson, Hogan. We actually got to meet those gentlemen and actually play with them, and then to have experienced the big three from Player, Palmer, Nicklaus, and I'll include the Trevinos, Irwins, all the ones that you mentioned. And then I bowed out before this wonderful young group that's doing it so well, the Tiger generation. But actually, my involvement in the '99 Ryder Cup, my good friend Ben Crenshaw included Bruce Litsky and I as assistant captains. We got to touch the the modern game. Got to touch Tiger and Mickelson, David Duval, Davis, Love, and the whole group, Payne Stewart. So anyway, I feel more than blessed to have my involvement in, not only the amateur game, but the great professional game as well.
Bill, when you were, from starting a tour in 1975 to the pinnacle of that time period that I referenced, and more specifically to 1981, was it an ascension for you? Did you feel that level of golf coming on along the way?
Not really. Like I said, I enjoyed just playing, enjoyed making a living. It's what I wanted to do. It's what my wife bought into. She was the great support system, of which that was very important. But we just enjoyed the kind of the professional golf family. And as I said, kind of taken as it came, all of a sudden you win a tournament, and then you win another tournament, and then you finish second in the U.S. Open as I did at Marion, behind David Graham. I was beaming and full of confidence. And you give an athlete a little confidence, and sometimes they're capable of more than what they really even think they're capable of. So I took that confidence to the Open Championship and knew I was playing well. And, I experienced being the very best teacher. Heck, I allowed myself to handle the big stage and, carried through for a win there at Royal St. George's. And it was magical. It was catching lightning in a bottle, frankly. And but it was a process, and I had a steady. I was progressing steadily throughout my career, and I just kind of allowed it to happen. And heck, I was an intense competitor. I loved it. I loved competing. Loved to kind of test myself, and I wound up kind of punching through a time or two, and it certainly was a life changer, that Open Championship, for certain.
That Open, in the final round on the seventh hole, you had a double bogey. You had a number of players trying to chase you down, not the least of which was Bernhard Langer. Where did you go at that point? How did you dig deep? How were you able, at that point, you were 3 over for the day. How were you able to hold on and eventually get it back on the rails?
Well, to begin with, that day, I'd played about as well as I could play the first 3 days, and just couldn't wait for the last round. But I would have to tell you that more than playing to win, I was playing not to lose to begin with the last day. Little defensive. I knew that I felt different, and that's natural. That comes with the territory. But as I walked off the seventh green, beginning the day with a 5-shot lead, and walking to the 8th tee box, and all of a sudden I've only got a 1-shot lead over the whole, about everybody you can imagine. I drew on experience. I didn't panic. Had good presence of the moment, and was able to handle the adversity. And you learn to play with adversity, and it's going to come in some form or fashion. And as I reflect back on that, the double bogey was the very best thing that could have happened to me that day, because from that point forward, I kind of just fell right back into playing aggressively and playing like I had the first 3 days. And experience kind of teaches you through those real adversity moments, and heck, I was able to capture it and get it done.
It's absolutely remarkable. When you broke through and you became the champion golfer of the year in 1981, did it validate what you in your heart already knew about who you were as a competitor, as a player, and your abilities? Or did it come to you in any way, shape, or form as somewhat as a surprise?
I wouldn't say I was surprised, but on the other hand, that's what you play for. And sometimes you find yourself in, maybe being a little out of your comfort zone, so to speak. But like I said, I'd had plenty of experience prior to that. Like I said, a month earlier, finishing second to David Graham. So I knew I was capable of being on that stage. And fortunately, I was able to mentally kind of follow through and get it done. But surprise, no. But tested, yes. I think that you're always being tested, and that was a different form of testing. But I was confident I could do it, and was able to break it down into its simplest forms when it meant the most. That meaning kind of one shot at a time, investing in what's in front of you, and not being distracted by all the everything that's going on around you. So I'd always, to repeat myself, believe that experience had everything to do with me being able to follow through with a win.
Bill's 1981 campaign was nothing short of remarkable. He won 7 tournaments worldwide in 1981, including that major. He played in 26 events, and he finished in the top 25 in 14 of them, including 9 top 10s and the runner-up that he had talked about in the prior segment at the U.S. Open at Marion. In March, the Sea Pines Heritage. In July, of course, that Open at Royal St. George's. All these wins coming in August at the World Series of Golf. In September, the Suntory Open in Japan. The end of September, he was part of that victorious 1981 United States Ryder Cup team, which I want to talk to him about in some detail. In October, the Texas Open. In November, he won twice on the Australasia Tour at the New South Wales Open, and culminating with a victory at the end of the month over Greg Norman at the Australian Open. When it was all said and done, he had taken down Hale Irwin in South Carolina, Bernhard Langer at the Open, Tom Kite in the World Series, Ben Crenshaw in Texas, and as mentioned, Greg Norman in his home country of Australia. He helped the Ryder Cup and was named the PGA Player of the Year. It was arguably one of the best years in the history of the game. Bill, when you hear that recounted, when you hear that level of detail as to what you did and who you defeated to do it, what does it mean to you today?
Oh, gosh, it's afforded me much. Certainly, not just that year, but the game itself. But heck, I was just one of the players, and very fortunate to have a little magical year there in 1981. Sometimes I think of kind of a lifetime career in the involvement of junior golf, high school golf, college golf, and then the professional game. But then all the factors involved in forming out a career. And it's easy to go to that little segment of it, that 81 season. And like I said, gosh, it's great to hear, kind of some of the things that were involved, the 7 wins. And but a competitor plays to find out who they are and to see how they're going to react under the most difficult circumstances. And it's one of the few times that the game actually seemed easy, of which it's not an easy game, I assure you. But sometimes everything just seems to fall into place, and it's kind of, I think it's kind of like Scotty Scheffler, what he's going through right now. Golly, the game must seem somewhat easy to him, and you kind of invest all the work maybe to capture that, and but it's well worth the investment for sure. And it's fun to look back on that, but there's so much more to it than just that one year. And like I said, grateful for every step along the way.
I'm curious, Bill, if you think your life can serve as an example to athletes, to golfers at any level, and particularly at the top tier. At Links Player, you wrote, I'm going to quote, It puts a knot in my stomach just to think about how ugly I got. And that's the best word that I can think of to describe myself. I got so ugly that I was actually pulling against my friends to make myself look better. I don't think I've ever told them this, but I remember being in my hotel room watching my friends on TV, actually hoping they wouldn't do well, just so I could feel better about myself. I had some sick moments thinking about that. A close quote. Clearly, this was after your success, and everybody wanted a piece of you. How well, when you look back on it, do you think you handled all that? And what insight can it give you to, and perhaps to impart to other people now?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and it's all a part of the journey, frankly. And that's kind of a competitor can get an awfully dark place. I think that we're modern day seeing some examples of that. But I'd become what I call soul sick, and if you get to a place where you actually have uh, to feel better about yourself, hope that others don't do as well, and that is an awfully dark place. And that's where I was. I all self-inflicted, certainly, and I'd become very complacent with my work ethic, and had become fat and happy. Heck, I was all in love with the almighty dollar and went to every corner of the globe chasing it, and all these factors kind of built into a kind of a heart sick kind of uh, position that frankly I certainly didn't like being there, but I wasn't willing to make the effort and do what it took to maintain a position that it requires to play at a high level on the PGA Tour. So anyway, a awfully dark place to get, but it was really a meaningful time in my life when I knew that there may be some other things that might be on the horizon that doesn't require playing the game of golf for a lifetime, and or certainly professionally. So anyway, it was a meaningful point in time in my career, and not anything that I was very proud of, I can promise you. But at that point that I did that interview, very transparent, and that was part of the healing process, actually. So I give credit to that I was able to work through that.
How, if I may, Bill, how were you able to work your way through that? I mean, ultimately, you left the game and became a director of golf, to step aside from those rigors and the pressures therein. But how did you pull yourself specifically from this place that you refer to as a dark place?
Well, you first of all, you have to understand that it's such a selfish endeavor, such a selfish motive to be in a place like that. And frankly, the tour, being the individual pursuit that it is, you can it can become very much a world all about you, and whatever you can do to promote yourself, and all a self-serving type journey. But uh, it was, frankly, post that, I was able to, through actually encountering a job position as a director of golf, of which I would have never imagined or considered being on top of the world as a professional golfer. But that was the humbling experience that was so important in my life. I all of a sudden came out of a world that was all about serving me, and then I'm in a position where I'm serving others, and to become others centered and to be grateful for all that you have, thankful for all that you have, is I think is a healing medicine, actually. And it's a it's a it's a way to find contentment, certainly. And anyway, that didn't happen overnight, by the way. It's still a work in progress, very much, I can promise you, but it's something that I pay attention to, and grateful for all the things that have come along in my career.
I'm sure, Billy, that's a path that all of us are on, respectively, trying to embrace the blessings as we move forward. When we come back with Bill Rogers, I want to go down a pathway that he's touched on, and I've also mentioned it as well, that he was part of an era that was a bridge from some of the greatest players of all time to great players through the era in which he played to the new players that adopted the game. It was a remarkable period. It's a period that I like to refer to as when giants roamed. He spoke about some of those giants, like being able to meet the likes of Ben Hogan and representing the United States on that Ryder Cup team that may have been the greatest United States Ryder Cup team ever. Delighted to have the company of Bill Rogers today, the 1981 Open champion at Royal St. George's, Player of the Year in 1981, a man that amongst the professional ranks won 14 times, plenty of that on the PGA Tour, but he won all over the world, which I think is a mark of a great game in terms of how it carries. But I wanted to start for a second, Bill, because I wanted to do a segment here where we talked about the people, whether you competed against them or had the ability to meet them during the time. It was a remarkable time in which you played and you competed. And let's talk about that 1981 United States Ryder Cup team. Do you look back at that and shake your head yourself and think about the star power that represented the USA in that year in which the USA convincingly took down Europe?
Well, Matt, I often look at the picture, the Ryder Cup team, and I said, what in the heck am I doing in that picture, to be honest with you? Gosh, what a group, and what a phenomenal collection of players. And to be honest with you, I really look at that Ryder Cup team and almost hold it in, if I term it correctly, high esteem, or as much esteem as I do winning the Open Championship. I mean, it's just, like I said, just overwhelmed with, just the fact that I was a player on that team. And one of the beauties of that team was Dave Marr, our captain. Gosh, he was a wonderful man and a great champion. And the underlying tone of that team was that we wanted to win for Dave Marr. And maybe it's a good time to mention that the fact that it was 100 years ago, 1981, it was still very important. I know that the hype and all involved in modern day Ryder Cup, of which I'm a big fan, and it is a remarkable event, but it was very important. We were only the second team to play in the Ryder Cup when Europe was brought to the table. So it was certainly a more competitive event, but we were all very serious. And although a wonderful group of players, we took it very seriously, and we wanted to win for our captain. And fortunately, with kind of Nicholas and Watson leading the way, and with the supporting cast, it was pretty remarkable, the outcome. But I look at it as one of the great moments in my professional career, for certain.
I just want to run through that team for a second. The cast, as Bill just put it: Ben Crenshaw, Raymond Floyd, Hale Irwin, Tom Kite, Bruce Litsky, Johnny Miller, Larry Nelson, Jack Nicklaus, Jerry Pate, Lee Trevino, and Tom Watson along with you. I want to go back to when it was Saturday afternoon, you and Ray Floyd up against Sandy Lyle and Mark James. You ended up taking him down 3-2. But when you think about that match, you're playing alongside of steely-eyed Raymond Floyd as your partner. Any recollections of that particular match and day?
Yeah, very much so. First of all, I love Raymond Floyd, and he picked me up off the mat because Dave Marr thought it was a good idea to waltz me and Bruce Litsky out there, best friends, the first day in our first two matches, and we just got strummed up, beat beat handily. And Raymond Floyd said, "Give me Bill Rogers. I'll take him out. We'll win you a point." And we did. And boy, all I had to do was kind of just hold on and let Raymond take control. But there's nothing like a competitor, as focused as Raymond was. And I'll never forget, just how intense and focused we were on taking down, Lyle and James. And fortunately we did. But it was a test. And, I'd have to mention in the same breath that, just a month earlier, or a month and a half, whatever it was, I was the Open champion and quite popular in that part of the world. But as it related to the Ryder Cup match there at Walton Heath, I wasn't near as popular. And
Imagine that.
It was, imagine that. It was serious business, I can assure you.
That's awesome stuff. In 1999, Ben Crenshaw is named captain of the United States Ryder Cup team. He names you and Bruce as vice captains. When he asked you to be his vice captain, I get the connections, I get the friendship, I understand all that, and I understand that it is a recognition and a reward. But vice captains are also there for a reason, and Ben is too deep a thinker. Is it possible, or are you willing to share with us what it was that you felt he wanted and needed from you that week?
Well, first of all and foremost, the three of us were as good a friends group as you could put together. We, shared college experience with one another, and just had a great friendship, great respect for one another. And the fact that Bruce had played at Brookline in the National Junior the same year Ben did, I believe the year might have been 1969 or 1970. And I'd played the Walker Cup matches there. Ben kind of felt like that was a natural connection that we had. The country club, us having competed there, and the fact that it was maybe one of his favorite places in the world. So it kind of had just a natural feel good about it. And I'll never forget the phone call from Ben asking me to be an assistant. I considered it high honor, and one of the great, and now that we're speaking about it, Matt, arguably, there would be those that would consider that the greatest Ryder Cup team ever assembled. So I was involved in two of them, yeah. And just from a professional golf standpoint, heady stuff, and I feel quite humbled to have been a part of both of them.
Bill, if you would allow, I have a personal philosophy relative to that 1999 team, but specifically to Payne Stewart, that if you look at the European side and the fact that they had Seve as their beacon, I think on the United States side that Payne would have been the equivalent of Seve for teams and teams to come. Not necessarily as a player, although he still had more in the tank, but certainly as a captain, and then as a talisman beyond that. And to have lost him tragically shortly after that Ryder Cup, I think it had a profound resonating impact on the United States Ryder Cup effort therefrom. Is that fair, or what would your opinion be relative to the same?
Well, not only fair, but insightful, and there's no doubt that's the case. Payne Stewart was all about his country, Ryder Cup. Of course, he was the U.S. Open champion a month earlier, whatever, a couple months earlier, and was having a magical year, certainly. But and then to imagine a month or so after the Ryder Cup that we lost him tragically. But yeah, you could paint his picture could be right beside Ryder Cup, and it would be well served to be there, because he was all about team, all about the family, all about the competition, and never more apparent than in the team room that week of 1999. He was the rally guy. But we had several of them, Payne being one of them, kind of the ringleader. But there was Hal Sutton, Tom Lehman, and Davis Love as well, holding the line for the old guys because there were a bunch of youngsters there as well, Tiger, Duval, and Mickelson. And not that they all weren't already somewhat seasoned, but the influence of these guys was like nothing else. I don't think any other team has experienced. But Payne made some uh, pretty profound comments all week, and in particular that Saturday night, talking about his father and what it meant, the PGA of America and the Ryder Cup, and the very deepest meaning of what this competition was all about. So he established himself as one of the highlighters of Ryder Cup for certain.
I realize that, Ben Crenshaw's finger waving statement that is now historic, that he felt like something special could happen on that Sunday, is easy to get behind in retrospect. But at the time, were you with him on that? Or did you think that this was just some ingenious form of coaching, if you will, to instill the possibility of hope?
Well, if you were around Ben, it wouldn't have surprised you because he sometimes he gets in some in a rarefied form, and he certainly was that. He was completely spent mentally and almost physically. It takes a lot out of you, and found himself in a very precarious situation, down by 4 Saturday night. But he really believed in the deepest recesses of his heart that they could pull this out. And he kept us making it clear that it was a razor thin margin, that they were leading by 4. Our team had played great. So he really continued to instill the belief that these guys could do it. And then when the lineups hit the table and we saw the fact that we front loaded the team and saw the matchups, there was nobody on the team that didn't believe that we weren't going to win this Ryder Cup, and everybody thought that it could be a 12-0 sweep, and it darn near about was. But it was a magical time, and for Ben to have held the banner as captain, it was apropos, I can promise you.
Bill Rogers, the 1981 Open champion, a very distinctive career. And distinctive because when you consider the fact that from a Walker Cup team in 1973 to winning the Open and everything that he did in that remarkable 1981 season, to concluding his run as a tour player, at least PGA Tour player, because he did play some Champs Tour as well, but on the PGA Tour side, late 1980s, then becoming a director of golf for another decade plus. He played right during a time when some of the greatest ever were still out there, still around. I mean, you had the likes of Sam Snead that was still making cuts on the PGA Tour well into Bill's run on the same. I'm just curious about that, Bill, because you mentioned specifically a Texas guy such as you are. You mentioned Ben Hogan and getting a chance to meet him. Could I ask you what happened there?
Well, a good friend of mine was a member at Shady Oaks, where Ben Hogan hung his hat, and knew Mr. Hogan very well. In fact, actually had some business dealings with him in the oil field. So he asked if I'd like to come to Shady Oaks and have lunch with Mr. Hogan. And I had actually seen him a time or two at Colonial, but this particular meeting was different. I was going to actually get to have lunch with him, and we did. And like most everybody would know that actually got to be with him and get to spend a little time with him. Very kind, generous man, and just no doubt had an incredible presence about him, but could not have been nicer, kinder for a lunch get together. And I wasn't the guy that was asking him a lot of the about his career, golf, or this. We just had a nice, pleasant lunch in the company of a friend of mine, and that was about the extent of it. I really didn't get to spend that much time with him, not as much as I did with Mr. Nelson, but uh, gosh, I feel privileged to have at least been able to have a moment of his time.
It's
Impressive individual.
it's incredible about it, Bill, and it's worth noting is the modern image of Ben Hogan is of a man that was hard and hard to get to know and hard to get on the inner circle on. And here you started with talking specifically using the word generous and kind words. That's a really interesting perspective on Mr. Hogan. Could you kind of expand on that for a second for us and tell us about what it was like? Were you nervous when you were getting a chance to meet him, and how did he make you feel comfortable?
Oh, absolutely. I was nervous. I was totally intimidated. And, it didn't take, partly to the comment about being kind and generous, it didn't take long for him to make me feel most welcome at his club, Shady Oaks. And I couldn't even tell you what the conversation or what the hour or so held, but I do know that, you have to understand Mr. Hogan's whole story to maybe understand some of the hard persona and things that he was exposed to and dealt with as a professional. And he was as intense a competitor and player that not only was he maybe the most beautiful player, but gosh, he was so intense and such a hard line competitor that I think sometimes that was taken out to maybe speak to his life as a whole. And when you're in the public and you're under the eye of the scrutinizing world, media, what have you, uh, you can be termed something that maybe you're really not behind the scenes or away from the what you do as in terms of a living. So I got to experience it, and I know a lot of other people that just cherish time with him. And he was an icon of our game, and I think nobody that's ever played the game professionally will ever know him anything other than kind of the man.
Speaking of icons, again, you had the chance to cross paths with a lot of absolutely remarkable players. I could go to Arnold Palmer, as you mentioned, Jack Nicklaus, who you competed with and served on a Ryder Cup team with, to the Tom Watsons of the world, the Tom Kites, etc. There are so many, it's hard for me to pick them out. If I cast the net that widely back to you, though, who would you point out and say, yeah, I can't believe that I got to play with or got to meet, shake hands, whatever way you define it, of the likes of these great, great players that were truly generational players?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, us young guys, or as I saw my group as we came on tour, we were getting to play with our idols. I mean, we watched the likes of Nicklaus, Player, Palmer, Snead, and we're living life with them and competing with them, and the Trevinos, obviously. And we this is what we did. This is what they did, and we're competing. And one story relative to your reflection on the 81 Open, I'll never forget. Arnold Palmer showed up at the 81 Open and Open Championship, and he was coming off a senior U.S. Open championship win in the States, and he was high as a kite and really felt very much. I think he wasn't much beyond 50 then. He was very much feeling that he was going to be a factor in this Open Championship at Royal St. George's. I can't even remember how he played, but he was still going at it hard and competing hard. But all of us loved certain times when we were able to spend a little time with these guys. What it might be at a corporate outing or off the tour the tour journey, we were able to spend special times with them and got to know them. And heck, you even became added even a deeper respect of these guys when they would give you anything. That's one of the beautiful things about the tour. People were quick to share not only what they were doing in their lives, but were willing to help you. If you had a question, they'd give you the time to answer it.
You and Mr. Palmer, by the way, were tied after the opening round. Both of you at +2, which goes to your memory that he was very much in the mix. He faded after that as you continued to ascend up the leaderboard. To that point, in the few minutes that we have left here with you, Bill, today, how do you reflect on this bridging between generations that exists in the game of golf to where we are today? What's your overall take when you look at the game of golf at its highest competitive tiers in 2024?
Well, I had my head buried in the sand for a good long while about the evolution of the game and that it is a new modern game. Well, I've pulled my head out of the sand and very much understand that it is a different game that these young men and women are playing professionally. And gosh, they're just doing some things that are remarkable. So many factors involved: the golf ball, the evolution of golf shafts, golf club head technology, the physical fitness, the mental training, what's going on at even junior levels now, but certainly in the college ranks. These young men and women are being trained up to just be prepared when they get out and do this tour business. And it's a long game, as we all know anymore. I don't know, can't speak to what might happen in the near future, but it's remarkable to watch. And the one thing that I'd like to say, we have some incredible ambassadors for the game right now. Scotty Scheffler certainly carrying the flag right now and doing it well. Golly, what a representative he is of our wonderful game. And I love watching. I love I tune in and watch enough golf to keep my finger on the pulse a little bit. And I know in some circles the professional game seems to be a little bit of a precarious situation. I won't weigh in on that, but I hope things get sorted out. And gosh, I feel so indebted to the tour, the PGA Tour, and the life that it afforded me. And I stand before you and interviewed by you because of it. And it's a wonderful game, not only just at the professional level, but all levels. And it's worth the investment of time. But it's great to be able to reflect on a career and share a little bit with you and give you a little bit of a backstory on what on my professional journey.
Bill, we'll wrap it up this way, if you would allow. You are a dad, you're a grandfather now. Pray many, many years from now, how do you want those closest to you to look back and remember Bill Rodgers?
Well, probably first and foremost that I loved them, and I been blessed with a wonderful wife that has supported me for so many years. My children have given us 4 grandchildren, and we do spend a lot of time together. But hopefully, God's given me a lot of life experience and wisdom, and hopefully some humility to be able to impart to not only my children but my grandchildren. I feel like that's the kind of the great task before me is being able to give back a little bit. And there's probably no better platform to do it than this great game of golf, the relational game of golf. So we'll punch forward, and like I said, God is good, and He's been good to us, and to Him alone be all the glory.
Bill, thank you so much for everything that you have meant to the game. Thank you so much for the time that you have afforded us today, because it was mighty, and we really appreciate your insights. You took us down some fascinating roads. Good to catch up.
Thank you very much, Matt. Well done.
Thank you.